Alrighty, guys, so let's start the presentation. We are the Jubilees. I'm Rachel.
I'm Raya.
And I'm Jess.
So we'll just go on to our first topic, or I should say questions.
All right, Rachel.
You want me to
go? Go for it. Yeah.
All right, so we're just going to be talking about how the view of the design profession has changed since completing the projects. How has the learning material helped you better understand how to communicate effectively using sound and motion, and how will it help you as a designer in the future? So whoever wants to go first.
Well, I will start. So I did not know the impact that it had. I thought it was just limited to like sound and audio, or sound, audio and motion was limited to just like film and audio production. I didn't realize how many elements of design could actually incorporate those things. So I thought that was really interesting. I feel like now I have a better understanding of how you can incorporate those elements into different design projects. And then also I've learned how to use After Effects, and I've furthered my knowledge of using Adobe Audition and other things like that. I feel like music is one way that people can relate with audiences, or a good way that you can relate content with audiences. So I think that, whether using sound effects or motion, there's just a lot of different ways that you can connect with them and build like that emotional relationship with consumers. So
Yeah, I'd have to second some of that. The comment about using After Effects, that was difficult for me. I know that isn't exactly a concept that we talked about, but it was a tool. And I think this course offered a lot of like the technical mechanical things around sound, which was a challenge for me. And I think breaking down each of the components of sound, or using auditory elements in film and video, was really helpful to think about how to put things together in the future. So whether it's a video or thinking of branding specifically as like a logo or product sonification, like just understanding that those are individual mechanical or technical aspects of it, that was brand new to me. And I think, and I would say like even as I learned in this class, this has probably been one course where I've actually thought, oh, like watching TV or hearing an audio logo, like I actually picked up on, oh, that's what that is. And never was like never a conscious thought before.
right.
I definitely think it helps us really focus in on those details, like every day-to-day life. Like even with me with designing, like you'll start looking at those fonts, whether it's on a menu at a restaurant or wherever you're at. Like that's what this has helped us do, but with sounds and effects.
I also thought something that was interesting was the science behind it, and how it affects different parts of the brain, and how it impacts like recall. I know we're about to talk about like brands and things like that, but just I saw like Netflix was a common example in a lot of the articles that I read. And that's something everybody can identify. Like you can, like you can automatically associate it with a brand or a service. And we do that with so many different brands. And it was very interesting, like learning how to apply it.
I like that. I see what you're saying. I completely agree. I do that same thing with like colors, again, like fonts, sounds, like you just know what company it goes to, if that makes sense. So like how we were doing with NBC, like that was one of our examples over there, which we'll talk about in the next slides. But it's just certain sounds and effects. You're like, okay, this goes for this company, that goes there.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and I think learning this, like I probably wasn't as excited about it at first because it's not something I've been exposed to or that I knew a lot about. So I mean, other than feeling like a challenge, I think it did teach me things that as a designer, I have a more dynamic perspective in designing and like can bring in the sound element and that be like can feel more knowledgeable.
Right.
And I think that's probably a competitive edge. I mean, as we were preparing for this, I saw a few articles on like is sonic branding the next big thing in podcasting if it's not there already, because I know some of my favorite podcasts have audio logos, and I think that's pretty fascinating. So while this feels new to us, I don't think it's going to be I think we're going to see more and more of it because of the ways that we consume content.
Right.
No, yeah, absolutely. And it helps us, at least for me, I don't know about you guys, but definitely stepping out of my comfort zone. Because
Right.
like I was trying to share with you
Definitely.
guys before, I did Adobe Audition a lot. I think I only worked with After Effects like once. And after that, I just never did until this course.
Right.
So it was definitely an extra step in pushing me out of my element to grow and learn more, which just expands that experience for us as designers to keep pushing forward.
Mm-hmm.
I have a newfound appreciation for After Effects and people that know that inside out.
Truly.
I do feel like a bit of a simpleton using other, like having used other tools to do this kind of work, but not knowing the ins and outs of it. Like like when you don't know what you don't know, you can't use it. But once you do know, it makes it really hard to take shortcuts or to want to use tools that are already put together because you have an idea of how things work together.
Right.
And how to produce something that's pretty special.
Do we want to hit the next one?
Yeah. I can introduce this one if you'd like. So we are tasked with finding a brand that we did not discuss in the course and comparing it to a design concept from this month's case studies. Either of you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go. All right, so one that I want to say stood out, but to me, I correlated it with NBC would be Fox News, or just the Fox network, I should say. So of course, it's a well-known company, just like NBC. But one thing that I think they both do over the years, they both have that signature sound. So
Right.
like what's NBC versus what's Fox News, which Fox uses an orchestra, which they ended up actually applying that in 1988. And then that's been their sound since. So although that logo has changed over the years, just like NBC's, that sound is like, that's how that's for that specific company, that's where it goes.
Mm-hmm.
What's fascinating about that specifically in news is it's not generation specific. So like you'd recognize it, your parents would recognize it, your grandparents would probably recognize, you know what I mean? Like that's continuity is a neat way to pull generational like awareness together.
You could also tell like the change over time too, versus that, I want to say older sound, but more how it's progressed over time, how the quality of using sound has changed as well. Before it used to sound a little stagnant or fuzzy, I should say, when recording, versus now it's that clarity comes through, but you still know it's for the company. Make sense?
Yes. I'll share the brand that I was looking at because it relates kind of closely to that, Rachel. So I looked up MGM's Lion, the Roar.
Yeah.
And it was pretty nostalgic actually. I just remember like as a kid hearing that and you just kind of like settle in with popcorn and whatever.
Yes.
And the clarity piece of that, like it's so distinguishable. And I can remember like it actually makes me feel like I'm like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old, or the whole period of time when you're like popping in a VHS, or and then the change when it went to DVD. Yeah, definitely invokes some nostalgia.
Oh, you said that, and it makes me think of, I don't know if you remember, it'll be like now available on DVD or like VHS at the time when they used to have like those screen displays before they would even show clips of trailers of new movies.
Yes.
Nostalgic. Oh my gosh, you threw me back.
I was thinking the same thing when I chose mine. Mine was the THX. I lost my side. The Sonic logo, which also played right before movies. And when I first was researching them, I didn't recognize the brand name itself. It's like it sounds familiar. And then as soon as I heard and saw the Sonic logo that they've been using, I immediately remembered. And it's, I don't know if you guys know it. It's just like a really loud, they call it a bass note or a deep note. And it starts off, it's really quiet, and then it starts to progress and it gets louder and more intense. And then as it gets to the final point, then the logo pops up. But the reason that they did that was to showcase the quality of their brand, because they wanted viewers to know that it was a THX certified performance. So I thought it was really smart how they did it, because you associate that brand, that sound, and that sound quality with whatever DVD that you're taking home. And like you see that logo on the back and you're like, oh, I really enjoyed this film. It was a great production, and now you have a quality product. Like I thought that was really interesting how they use that to their advantage.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like our second question here, what concepts do you recognize in the brand? It's interesting to analyze audio logos and to understand like how you relate that sound to things that a brand stands for. Like, does the sound define the brand, or how much effort is put into having that sound exemplify brand values or brand voice? Like how do you find that consistency? And if you don't have it, can you use audio logos or sound to help influence that? Like the science behind it is pretty fascinating.
Absolutely.
I love it, because I think it's what makes that brand successful, right? Like every single company that we're listing, it's gonna either bring that nostalgia, or you're just gonna know what company it's for because of the sound. So it goes to show that not only is your logo important, but every other element that's added to that is what's gonna distinguish it compared to every other company that's out there.
Right. And how else would you know if you that brand didn't use that form of branding? Like how else would you recognize that brand? Like it wouldn't have the same impact if you just saw, in the credits that it was a THX certified performance or production. Like, but connecting with the audience and that, and like having that impact, I think really sticks with like viewers. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Absolutely.
I think we talked a little bit, a couple of ones that kind of stand out, I think, are the T-Mobile sound.
Yeah.
And if you think about like how, like that's immediately recognizable, it's great. I think like how does that influence my perspective of the brand? I think it encourages brand recognition.
Absolutely.
But depending on, like regionally, I would be curious to know if there's a different perception, like a regional influence on the brand perception. Some of them are just global, right? Like everybody knows Apple. Everybody knows that sound. Everybody knows the audio logo and the ringtone, like the product. So it's, you know, and as far as T-Mobile, like, yes, we know it, but how does it influence your interaction with the brand, or does it?
Right. I kind of think about voting, like whenever you're voting in an election and, you know, maybe you don't know the people on the ballot, but, or, you know, you don't know their stance or whatever, but people automatically associate like, oh, I've seen this name on commercials. I've seen it advertised at my house. So you automatically choose what's more recognizable to you because it seems reliable. And I think the same thing, like if you were given two choices, T-Mobile, a brand that you've seen commercials for, you've seen, you know, advertisements for, versus, you know, Cricket, and you haven't, you know, had that same interaction with it, which one are you going to choose? And you know, I think that's the leverage that these brands have when they're incorporating those elements.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, that is.
All right, we want to move on to the last one.
Let's do it.
Well, I will speak to this one because I had to personally research what Jubilee actually meant. So when we had to brainstorm the elements and connect it to our brand, I definitely had to do a little bit of background. I had to build up my background knowledge. But after researching it and finding out that it's like Jubilee refers to a special anniversary or event, I automatically thought about like a wedding anniversary, how wedding anniversaries are represented by different colors, oftentimes like metallic colors like gold, silver, which automatically makes you think of like a celebratory celebration, you know, people talking, champagne glasses, toasting. And then it, you know, after I had those connections, then I really started to piece it together and really understand like the goal of this assignment, because before the word didn't mean anything. And then after associating it with something, I automatically had a connection for it. So that was kind of my takeaway from it.
No, I like that. I want to piggyback off of that. I definitely feel like the Jubilees mean something for me personally, like vibrant, has that nice energy, something bright as you were listening. My head instead of silvers went more towards like I assume golds, like just
Right.
yellows, bright reds. Again, it's that celebration. I think for me, like I put when it comes to brand archetypes, I personally thought it would be either like a creator or a hero archetype, solely because those two just stood out the most to me when it comes to our group name. I feel like the Jubilees is something that we'll just keep pushing forward and chugging through. And I think even as a group, that's what we did over the past couple of weeks. We were just going. So so like I think when it comes to though designing as well, just thinking outside the box, it's taking that meaning of what we know, which is a celebration and anniversary, and then applying it so we can just be more creative as designers too.
Right.
Yeah, I think you both did a good job of explaining that. My sentiments sort of are not that much different. I also had to look it up, and I felt a little naive maybe. So definitely like the themes of royalty, clean, elegant, the golds or silvers, whites, a celebration, like anniversary, maybe even if we should be considering like some kind of numerical value, like 25 years or 50 years.
Right.
And then as I thought about it more, I realized like this is a really good example of when you should know your client, because there could be a religious connotation. It could be, you would not want to miss the mark tremendously by not, you know, understanding like I think the literal translation,
Right.
and really doing like discovery and research with a client. For us, I think we were all pretty aligned on it. I also, after, as we were prepping for this, having the name and thinking about it as a brand encouraged, I think, some like cohesion, I think, even between us. So for me, it wasn't so much the name of it, it was like giving us a tribe or a group or some type of connection that we wouldn't have had even if we had just been placed in groups without a group name, thinking of it from this perspective. So I think all of that is kind of a testament to the complexity of this course in general, like thinking through sound, thinking through design and color and naming and meaning, like all of the things that we should be considering. The one question that I struggled with is who is our target audience, and the best thing I could come up with is I'm just not sure that we could define that without
Right.
Having had this conversation, or we would need more info. It'd be a more TBD.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree with that. I also struggled with that. I think that to me, the name of the brand is more about, like, opposed to the literal meaning, like what that represents. So like to me, an anniversary or celebration refers to something that's been sustainable. It's been consistent, and it is something that, you look back on with positive emotions. So to me, like, the brand would represent something that's been centered around building itself on high quality products or, services, designs. Like, so in terms of target audience, I think it would be somebody that would value high quality products or services. And it wouldn't just be, like a cheap one and done thing. Like it'd be a goal to build a strong relationship with consumers, and hopefully turn them into repeat customers. So that was my thoughts on target audience.
Rachel, before you go, I was thinking that just totally triggered an idea for me for the three of us and what we know of each other going through this process, like, and knowing this is like an anniversary or celebration is in the meaning. I would think of like perseverance, like we're a group that's persevering through it, and like a target audience we would serve as more of an inspirational brand for someone who is working through something.
Exactly.
Our version of our celebration would be persevering. So that's our Jubilee, that we're getting through it all, Our target audience has no age. It's just about keep pushing, keep going, moving forward. And honestly, just seeing that light at the end of the tunnel, regardless of your circumstances.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Do we have any other notes we want to add in? Any other final thoughts?
Yeah, how do you guys feel about like having done this course? And I definitely feel like I have a more thorough understanding. I still definitely feel like amateur. Mm-hmm. However, I do feel more confident in exploring sound elements aside from like just pulling, audio in and layering it with narration or imagery. Like, I definitely feel more knowledgeable. What about both of you? Are you more inclined to work more with sound, or like how has this impacted like your perception or motivation to apply the concepts we've learned?
I think earlier, I don't remember who said it, but you're like, you don't know what you don't know. And to me, this would have never been something I would have explored. I've been not having a background in graphic design or media design. I've been kind of teaching myself a lot of these things, and this is never something that was even on my radar. And I think that's why it was kind of hard to grasp in the beginning, because I didn't really understand the importance of it or how it could impact me. But I think like overall, like you said, like I have a newfound appreciation for it. I have I see the connections, I see the reason why. And now it's just figuring out like, how can I use this to relate to, you know, whatever project I'm working on.
I mean, Raya, I'm the one that said it. You don't know what you don't know. But as someone who does have that background in graphic design, I still struggled with After Effects. So that means nothing. I want to put that in there. Again, it's just all of us learning and going through that motion. So for me, for the course, I think like most things, I'm gonna now be more detailed with sounds. So I'm gonna start correlating a lot of sounds to a lot of companies, not intentionally. I think it will just be subconsciously, but then it'll start making me really pay attention to those features, those effects, what's being applied in every company. And then I'll start like applying it to my designing, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
like, okay, this is what they did for this. How could I do that when I'm branding with a consumer? What can I do? I
Yeah,
do
and
have some respect though for people who do this on a daily.
Yes, yes.
for sure. I think that the one extra step for me is being more particular about the delivery of sound and just the quality in general of how these things, how it's applied, like the quality, the clarity, the volume, the cohesion, complement, like all of those things. I think I'm more attuned to and will be harder on myself when developing and designing.
Yeah, same. Absolutely.
I think we are out of time, but
I think we are too. Thanks so much, guys. I appreciate it.
thank you. You guys
Yeah,
are awesome. And I appreciate all your insight and help along the way.
likewise. We did it.
Yeah.